Bob Lazar was right about everything regarding the technology related to these UFO crafts. Very recently, an exciting photo appeared on social media from a man from Spain. He took this photograph, which seems to be some UFO object that looks far more bizarre. This is the most precise image of an alien or government craft we, the public, have ever seen. And kudos to the man for not taking a blurry or pixelated photo. The object has unknown origins and was taken by an anonymous man in a private enclosure. It is said to have a perfect metallic design with no flaws. The poster explained that there did appear to be a door or some way to enter the craft on the side, although from the photograph, we cannot see that. The timing of this photo is interesting. This appeared on social media only days after several eyewitnesses spotted multiple UFOs above Spain. The other eyewitnesses described an almost identical object flying overhead. Many of the UFO sightings and phenomena also match that of UFO sightings seen around South America and the United States. The complete and total ability to ignore our understanding of physics, time, and space. Just recently, on July 26th, 2023, 3 retired intelligence officers testified before Congress. They revealed to the American public that the U.S. military has been very aware of non-human activity going as far back as the 1930s. They went on to explain that there's even backlash they could potentially face for revealing this information. Of course, the Pentagon has denied all of these revelations, yet these 3 men still stand by what they said as the whole hidden truth. What's very interesting is that when they were testifying to Congress, they said that the technology of these things superseded anything humans could achieve. On top of that, they admitted that there was extraterrestrial life, something we've all suspected, but now have a firm understanding of the truth, or at least partly. Seeing something like this being major news could only mean a few things. Some of us might be wondering about the timing of such an event. Well, it depends on how you understand the inner workings of what's going on behind the scenes. The timing of this could make a perfect distraction for a sleight of hand maneuvering behind the scenes, or it could be conditioning for more things to come. Based on what he spoke of in working with extraterrestrial technology, Bob Lazar appears to be correct in that even these government whistleblowers acknowledge that these crafts are using that same technology. It makes you wonder what else will come out that will confirm everything we thought we knew. It's not just government officials and intelligence officers within our military who have extraterrestrial life experiences. Believe it or not, our presidents have their own stories as well. But before we get to that, here's a fascinating UFO account near Bakersfield, California. Almost 10 years ago, I found myself working a late shift in Bakersfield, California, quitting time nearing midnight. This is one night I can't shake from my memory even to this day. It was in the depth of winter, a time when the streets are abandoned and quiet. As any local would know, most of downtown is deserted past 9 p.m., and on a Monday night, no less, it felt even more desolate. I clocked out and walked to the parking lot, my mind filled with the comforting thoughts of home. As some of you may know, the place I worked at was just off Buck Owens Boulevard, notoriously lackluster bar the vibrant Crystal Palace that Buck Owens himself commissioned. The only light that night was from those street lamps dotted along the block. Make no mistake, it was a regular winter night in Bakersfield. I stepped into my car to head home, the fog clouding the windshields. Anyone who lives in Bakersfield knows how bone-chillingly cold and foggy it can get during the winter. Coming out of the parking lot, I found myself at the stop sign, waiting to turn onto Buck Owens Boulevard. As I readied myself to finish the laborious routine of the drive home, my attention was pulled towards the sky, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. In the sky, to the east, towards the bright lights of the Crystal Palace, loomed unusual silhouettes against the black expanse. They were countless in number, rising gently like a swarm of locusts, their shape unmistakably similar to manta rays in the ocean. Slowly, steadily, they ascended into the night sky, till they appeared as mere specks in the distant horizon, disappearing one after the other. My initial reaction was of disbelief, convincing myself that it was just a result of exhaustion, some optical illusion that my weary brain was imposing on me. However, the shapes were clear and distinct, not a product of the fog or the dim street lamps. I was sure of what I saw, and there was no mistake about their odd resemblance to the sea creatures. Not knowing what to make thick of it, I felt a chill running down my spine, a mix of bewildering confusion and gut instincts telling me this might be an encounter of the third kind. Fear took a back seat as curiosity kicked in. The strange spectacle unfolding in front of me was nothing short of extraordinary, and it begged to be investigated. The objects, if that's what you would call them, continued their mysterious dance across the sky, the city seemingly oblivious to this unexplainable phenomenon. Like a moth magnetized to a flame, I decided to follow them. I sped in the direction of the Crystal Palace, my eyes glued to the alien-like apparitions slowly languishing from view. They were moving in harmony, twisting and turning in the night sky, reaching an ominous rhythm in their motions that was nothing short of choreographed. Pursuing them took me beyond the city limits and through empty fields, a journey that felt both electrifying and chilling at the same time. The shapes began to fade, either taking off to some far-off place or disappearing altogether. Eventually, my car stalled around halfway between Bakersfield and Arvin, ending the wild chase, leaving frustration to blend with my mounting fear. Returning home, I decided to keep the happenings of the night to myself, unsure of how anyone would react, or the negative repercussions that came with announcing an encounter of a supposed UFO. The next morning, I woke up to accounts of dozens of calls made to the Bakersfield Californian and the Kern County Sheriff's Office about sightings of unusual lights in the sky. Although no official recognition was attributed to these events, silently, many of us knew we had been spectators to an unexplainable spectacle the previous night. Later that week, an amateur pilot reported an encounter with a bright, unidentified object during a late-night flight, further validating the incident. What happened that night in Bakersfield still remains a mystery. Whether it was an alien visitation or a half-remembered dream, who can say? I decided to share this incident today, hoping to find others who might have experienced the same. Perhaps together, we can piece together the puzzle of that mysterious night and shed some light on the enigma that looms over Bakersfield. Incredible stories of U.S. presidents seeing UFOs have occasionally popped up. Rumors have it that even Ike Eisenhower, famous for his love of sports, had claims of bizarre alien encounters. The explanation? A timely trip to the dentist, or so they want us to believe. Jimmy Carter, who fought his way up to be Georgia's governor, also has a riveting tale. During a Lions Club gathering, Carter and several pals claim to have spotted a peculiar object in the sky. Even more intriguing, this floating light took on different colors and seemed to move closer to them. But that's where the story ends.
Yeah, the guy who saw and reported the UFO was the future president of the United States, Jimmy Carter.
We only got more juicy details once he blurted it out while in office as governor. Then there's Gerald Ford, who fought tirelessly for his constituents who claimed to have seen UFOs while not claiming to see any aliens himself. JFK also added to the mystery by mentioning the possibility of unknowns in space. But nothing quite beats the tale of the man of Hollywood fame, Ronald Reagan. A confidential account about Reagan's surreal UFO experience leaked when he shared it with a Wall Street Journal reporter. He described seeing a white light closely following his plane while serving as governor. Yet, the most captivating account came from his experienced pilot, Bill Painter. As per Painter, he and his passengers, including Reagan, were on a night flight near Bakersfield. An unusual light shone far from their Cessna Citation, not causing much alarm. As they kept an eye on it, the light stretched, getting longer until it almost resembled a shooting star. Out of the blue, the object shot upwards at an unbelievable speed, much to everyone's bewilderment. Ronald Reagan, known for his cool head, was just as amazed as the rest. The UFO had jumped from cruising at an idle speed to zooming off into the sky in a split second, much like a sports car revving from a standing start. Intriguingly, no report was filed on the strange observation. UFO stories were still seen as madness at that time, best left unsaid. To this day, Reagan's UFO encounter of 1974 leaves us pondering. What kind of aircraft could achieve such extraordinary speed and movement during that time? Even with today's advanced technology, we need help identifying any known plane that matches the peculiar object Reagan and his crew witnessed. What makes Reagan's experience even more critical is his later position as the leader of one of the world's strongest nations. This puts his UFO sighting among the most notable in history. If only we knew what that white light was, or do we? On Tuesday, September 13th, 2002, at 2 a.m., a large triangular object, potentially of an alien nature, was reportedly spotted in the neighborhood of Concord. This metallic gray-blue structure was witnessed by 4 night shift workers: John, 28, Mike, 26, Steve, 26, and Will, 29. According to their collective testimony, they were near Almond Park when they noticed the entity moving in a westward direction across the sky. Steve and Mike initially spotted the object, which they described as a flat metallic construction mysteriously gliding above the hills. Almost simultaneously, John and Will witnessed a similar large entity appearing from the north. This one, though, seemed quite massive, shaped like a triangle with large lit areas and glowing white lights at the edges, moving slowly over the horizon. It made no sound and left no radar trace. After a short duration, it disappeared. Bill is also reminded of a personal experience from 1996 on a summer trip to Sequoia National Park. He saw a large metallic triangular object similar to the one reported by John, Mike, Steve, and Will. It was silent, hung in the sky for a bit, and then faded away. Moreover, there have been frequent reports in the last 6 months about strange wolf-like creatures in North Beach and Chinatown. These sightings have caused distress among locals. In light of these incidents, Bill emphasizes the importance of reporting such sightings promptly to local law enforcement and staying vigilant, particularly after dark, for personal safety. He encourages sharing personal experiences of such phenomena for the collective knowledge and benefit of the community. This is not intended to create panic, but to cultivate an understanding of these unusual occurrences. Then there's Linda and Jake Garcia. In the early 1990s, they lived in a quaint house on Nicollet Drive, Green Bay, Wisconsin. It was much closer to the renowned UFO landing strip, as the locals called it, and they experienced something extraordinary during their stay there. The first unusual occurrence happened late one night. Linda awoke to spot a shadowy figure of an elderly man disappearing into the corner where an old cupboard used to be. She brushed it off as a weird nightmare, although it felt strangely real. 2 weeks later, Linda and Jake were enjoying a cozy barbecue with another couple from the neighborhood. The men were outside taking charge of the grill, and the women were inside preparing salads and drinks. At one point, Jake and his friend noticed 2 metallic, unidentified objects in the sky. They were too shocked and mesmerized to react initially, and by the time they managed to get the women outside, the mysterious aircraft were gone. The objects seemed to have come from and headed toward nearby Austin Straubel International Airport. However, what unsettled them the most was an incident that took place just a few weeks later. Jake used to work odd hours at a shipping company in the city, driving late into the night. One evening, after finishing his deliveries around 1 a.m., he took his usual route home, which passes by the old railway yard. This yard, littered with discarded rail carriages, was always an eerie sight at night. That night, as he was approaching the end of the rail yard, his eyes were inexplicably drawn to a motion atop an abandoned carriage. Squinting into the darkness, he saw an anomalous creature, about half the height of an average man, that bore an uncanny resemblance to a large rabbit or even a cat. Its round face was accentuated by the glow of the moon overhead. It was bipedal, standing erect on 2 hind legs. It darted away from the railway yard, so fast it was almost a blur. He shared his encounter with Linda, and they drove back to the rail yard that same night, hoping for any logical explanation. Light tricks from a solitary lamppost, but the railway yard was desolate as ever. Could there be a connection between the UFO sightings and this creature? It remained speculation, as no solid evidence could be found to back up either incident. To this day, despite the lack of concrete explanations, they'll never forget their peculiar encounter in the early 90s. But it doesn't end there. On May 5th, 1980, at 5 years of age while living in Springfield, Illinois, in his 4-decade lifespan, an anonymous Reddit user had been experiencing what he describes as an onslaught of misfortunes. From watching glowing orbs in the sky that seemed to foreshadow disasters to having prophetic dreams, his life could easily easily mirror an eerie supernatural thriller. But according to him, it isn't a fabrication or some embellished creepypasta. It's his reality. Having moved around a lot since childhood, he's lived in places across states. In each location, he has incidences of uncanny events to narrate. While he's lived in Austin, Texas in 1991 and New York City in 2008, he distinctly recalls sighting orbs in the sky. Both sightings were followed by significant personal low points. Most recently, in 2019, he was driving on I-77 near Charlotte, North Carolina on a fine sunny afternoon when he saw a craft that resembled the one from the Flight of the Navigator movie. His experiences don't limit themselves to only the eerie sightings. He's also had dreams that seemed too real and eventually turned out to be in their own twisted and abstract ways. An instance he retells is a dream he had in Boston in late 2003 where he rescued a child from a fire. 2 days later, he ended up helping his neighbor's old, disabled lady in getting out of her house, which caught a small but rapidly spreading kitchen fire. When talking about these experiences, he recalls a peculiar story which occurred in San Francisco in 2015. He was returning home from his late-night job when he spotted a tall, lanky figure sprinting on a parallel road to his van. According to him, the figure seemed more like a thick fog shaped like a humanoid than any solid form. Although the street was dimly lit, he could still make out its peculiar, disjointed way of moving. What scared him wasn't the figure's incomprehensible gait or its obscure features, but the way it flickered out like a dying firefly. He drove past a road sign, and by the time he looked back at the figure, it had morphed into a road sign. It was as if the creature had camouflaged itself. There lies a variety of parallel stories for each city he's lived in, but one element that has remained constant across years and locations is the unexplainable vanishing of the beings he's encountered. Whether it was the ghost-like figure from San Francisco or two men he saw loitering near his Chicago apartment in 2017, his encounters appear to be fantastic, bordering on implausible. However, for him, they are as real as his existence. As he states, this narrative isn't a flight of imagination. Rather, it draws upon directly witnessed instances that induce a sense of unexplained fear. It's a reality common people might struggle to comprehend. Paranormal activity, a lie, coincidences, misinterpretation, hallucinations, or an interplay of space-time we're yet to understand. The truth, as always, might be stranger than fiction. On the evening of June 19th, 1995, around 8 p.m., a strange event unfolded in the quiet suburb of Little Rock, Arkansas. Two 10-year-old boys, Johnson and Turner, were out playing in a nearby park when they spotted an unusual object in the sky. It had a pinkish glow and was moving towards them with a distinct humming sound. The object, appearing to be some sort of aircraft, landed in the park just yards away from the children. The boys described it as a spherical craft, roughly 6 meters in diameter and slightly taller in height. As they moved closer to investigate, they reported that the spacecraft had a metallic appearance with peculiar symbols inscribed on its surface. Seemingly out of nowhere, a ladder dropped from the bottom of the craft, and what the boys described as a humanoid figure descended. The figure was slightly taller than the average man and was dressed in a shimmering silver outfit. He carried something that, to the boys, resembled a large tool, or maybe even a weapon. The being had a reddish-brown complexion, distinctly large ears, but most chillingly, a face that lacked any distinguishable features. The eyes were entirely black, while the mouth and nose were non-evident. Suffice it to say, the boys took off running home, screaming for help. Once the local authorities were informed, a massive investigation was launched. In 1995, Fort Chaffee, a nearby military base, was reportedly conducting secret late-night training activities involving customized high-altitude, high-opening parasailing units. The soldiers would ascend to such great heights that they appeared as though they had descended from an aircraft. The reddish-brown complexion of the humanoid could have been a faceless mannequin used for training and testing purposes, something which the military confirmed confirmed to have used in the past, albeit not during the time of the incident. The tool or weapon that the figure was holding could either be an instrument used in the training or simply been a figment of the children's imagination. While the theory might seem far-fetched, it's the only sensible explanation proposed thus far. Despite being publicly ridiculed, Johnson stands by her narrative. Having endured the mysterious encounter herself, she devoted her life to researching similar experiences and wishes to provide closure not only for herself but for all other individuals who have had similar experiences but are hesitant to speak up, fearing public humiliation. On a separate note, her childhood friend Turner has developed a different theory altogether. He believes that their experience was of extraterrestrial nature. This experience for him opened up the world of ufology, where he has dedicated himself to unveiling the secrets that he believes our universe has in store. Though there's no concrete evidence that validates either theory, at the end of the day, that warm evening in June will go down as one of the most peculiar occurrences in the heart of Arkansas, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of two young witnesses, forever altering their career paths and lives. I want to talk to you about a Hangar 18... No, not that Hangar 18. Sorry, Megadeth. Hangar 18 the film. Hangar 18 is a riveting UFO conspiracy movie that debuted in Hollywood in 1980. This film fueled speculation within the UFO enthusiast community due to its close examination of the UFO mystery and its alleged incorporation of details from top-secret UFO-related government files. Hangar 18's 1980 release sparked significant interest among enthusiasts who were just beginning to discover the secrets of the Roswell incident. The film sets off in Earth's orbit, where a NASA satellite is preparing for a grand liftoff under the U.S. military's surveillance. As the satellite lifts off, it unexpectedly collides with a UFO, taking the life of an astronaut in the dispatch bay. This startling event is witnessed by Bancroft and Price, our protagonists, and other astronauts on board. As the crew returns to Earth, they start fishing for answers, but quickly catch onto a massive government cover-up under their noses. As the movie unravels further, we discover that post-collision, the UFO made a successful landing on the Arizona desert and was swiftly secured by the U.S. military. It is then moved to the top-secret Hangar 18 for NASA scientists, led by Darren McGavin, to explore. Inside the UFO, the scientists unveil three critical discoveries. They find the deceased alien pilots who look strikingly similar to humans, leading to the theory that these extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in ancient times, intermingling with Earth's population and laying the seed for human life as we see today. They discover a human woman, presumably abducted, who awakens disturbed and panicked on being brought out from the spaceship. Upon encountering glyphs similar to those found in ancient human civilizations and aerial surveillance footage of our planet's power stations, military bases, and main cities, the scientists conclude that the aliens maintained a keen and active interest in our technological capabilities. Even as NASA scientists make these shocking findings, Bancroft and Price are tirelessly hunting down the truth, which lands them in the crosshairs of government agents. Price is killed, but Bancroft evades their traps and enters the alien spacecraft in Hangar 18. Soon after, NASA scientists crack the code on the alien glyphs, revealing a sinister plan for the aliens returning to Earth in large numbers soon. The same year, the term MJ-12, or its alternate, Majestic 12, was discreetly introduced to the UFO community. It is now a popular buzzword in various media, including films, TV shows, comic books, and video games. As this information settles in, government agents orchestrate a bold plan to fly a remote-controlled jet packed with explosives into Hangar 18. They aim to eradicate everyone involved in the cover-up and bury the secret forever. Unbeknownst to them, a few NASA scientists and Bancroft are inside the invincible spacecraft, surviving the explosion. The movie ends on this cliffhanger, leaving the audience wondering whether these survivors will expose the truth about UFOs. In 1983, at a meeting on Kirtland Air Force Base, New Mexico, Officer Richard Doty presented Howe with a fascinating document titled Briefing Paper for the President of the United States of America on the subject of unidentified aerial vehicles. He instructed her to study the paper, but strictly advised against carrying it outside or taking notes. The intriguing report, filled with staggering details about UFOs, cited many crashes. Mysteriously, 2 incidents occurred near the Roswell region in 1947, and the next in 1949 ended in the capture of a live extraterrestrial. Lockup at the Los Alamos National Laboratories. The being, unfortunately, died in 1952 due to undisclosed reasons. The report lists other UFO crashes: Aztec, New Mexico, Kingman, Arizona, and Laredo, Texas. But what left Howe gobsmacked was the claim that the extraterrestrials manipulated the DNA of evolving primates to create Homo sapiens. The document also stated that the ETs had sent a being to Earth to teach us about love and nonviolence. She assumed they were talking about Jesus Christ, an assertion that rendered Doty speechless and visibly uncomfortable. Researchers, including Mike Cleland, suspect the uncanny similarities between Hangar 18's plot and the information shown to Howe were not purely coincidental. Some argue that the Air Force used the movie as a soft introduction to the concept of UFOs and extraterrestrial life before sharing the report with Howe. It's a mystery that entices and fascinates us all. The influence of extraterrestrial beings on the course and development of human life and civilization. Sun Classic Pictures, a Utah-based production powerhouse, made a real splash in the 70s and 80s when they started producing intriguing and thought-provoking films and TV shows on out-of-this-world subjects. With a strong interest in UFOs and other supernatural phenomena, they didn't shy away from delving into controversial and highly debated afterlife theories, as evident with films like Beyond Death's Door. In 1980, Sun Classic Pictures pushed out Hangar 18, another gripping extraterrestrial film that spun heads around in the UFO community. But it wasn't all aliens and UFOs with Sun Classic Pictures. They balanced their repertoire and catered to a more religious and spiritual audience with documentaries like In Search of Noah's Ark and Search of Historical Jesus. They even had a popular TV series, Greatest Heroes of the Bible. So what drew a Mormon film studio to the cosmic abyss of UFOs and alien life? Fun fact, Mormons believe the Earth isn't the only planet thriving with life, but rather just one of many. They believe Jesus created these planets for eternal life. This belief, coupled with claims that these inhabitants closely resemble humans, could give a scientific twist to the highly human-like creatures depicted in Hangar 18. About a year ago in May, a friend of mine, let's call her Rachel, was coming back late from the library at Pennsylvania State University. She claimed to see an enormous white fox sitting at the intersection of College Avenue and Fraser Street. Rachel swears the fox had luminous green eyes that remained glued on her as she biked down the street. Just so happens, a buddy, Alex, and I were out in the same area not long before, looking to investigate rumors of an elusive bobcat sighted around the locality. As we headed back to our dorm, we noticed unfamiliar large paw prints about the size of a human fist that hadn't been there before we ventured out. We disregarded them as dog prints, given that local puppers sport half the print size. Jump to the following weekend, May 14th, to be exact, my friend Alex and I planned to head back into the same area. We hoped to either confirm or refute the bobcat rumors, or perhaps observe the mysterious fox. We were driving at a steady speed when an unusually unkempt man caught our attention. He had this weird dreadlocked hair at the top and side of his head, giving him an appearance akin to a wolf's ears. As we braked to stop at the intersection, the man bent over on all fours and started sniffing the air. We assumed he was just homeless, harmless, but the weird fact was his hands. They appeared to have paw-like protrusions more familiar to a cat than a human. Atop of all, he had these remarkable, piercing green eyes, entirely akin to the fox that Rachel had seen a week ago. The intrigue got the best of us, and we followed him discreetly. He kept sniffing at random intervals, his attention predominantly towards thickets around East Halls. Moving swiftly, he seemed to have an animalistic agility while crossing obstacles. The weirdest part of it all was the rumbling sound he made as he moved. Not human, not fox, not bobcat. This certainly freaked us out. The sights of the paw prints came back to our memory. We shuddered at the thought of it being his footprint. Eventually, we lost him in the dense trees where the lights from the dorms faded away. Didn't help that the battery of my phone gave out and couldn't turn the flashlight on either. Following that encounter, Alex and I kept our bobcat fox exploration confined to daylight for the rest of the semester. As the end of the year approached, I moved back home to Philly and pretty much forgot about the uncanny encounter. About a year later, this week to be exact, as I scrolled Reddit during my usual late-night boredom, came upon a term, Therian. I thought this was a guy memeing, but a click to check him revealed tales similar to mine. Maybe there's more to the man with canine attributes we saw that day. Looking back, it sounds a lot more mysterious than menacing. My curiosity spikes every time I recall the account. What if we had followed the figure into the woods? Regardless, the experience has given me an uncanny interest, not in the standard ghosts and haunted houses kind of way, but more in the lines of folklore, cryptids, and mysteries committed by extraordinary creatures living among us. Man, now I don't feel like returning to Penn State for the fall semester. I'm pretty sure that this was alien related since there was a lot of UFO sightings around this time. What do you guys think? Many theories aim to solve the mystery of UFOs. Among the most debated is the idea that UFOs aren't from distant galaxies, but rather come from Earth itself. Sounds wild, right? But maybe it's not as unbelievable as you think. According to some UFO enthusiasts, the creatures we assume to be aliens might actually be remnants of an ancient, highly advanced race from Earth. These beings are thought to have chosen or have been driven to live apart from society in vast subterranean worlds deep beneath our planet's surface. The late Mac Tunney's, a writer, was deeply invested in unveiling the truth about these so-called underground entities, who he referred to as crypto-terrestrials. Just before his unexpected death in 2009, Tunney's told me about his changing perceptions of UFOs and their supposed alien pilots. He pointed out that supposed aliens shared an uncanny resemblance with us. Rather than showcasing the superior advances in technology we'd expect of beings capable of interstellar travel. According to Tunney's, the theory that UFOs are from other planets might not be adequate to fully explain these encounters. Could it be that these aliens aren't so alien after all? For Tunney's, ET wasn't bizarre enough. He believed the real weirdness lies right under our feet. A race of humanoid beings evolved here on Earth, the crypto-terrestrials. According to Tunney's, these crypto-terrestrials have been messing with our beliefs for a suspiciously long time, blending their ways into our cultures, beliefs, and myths. He found it intriguing that so-called alien encounters might be staged affairs aimed to confuse us and distort our perceptions. Take, for example, the contactees, folks who claim to have met the humanoid Space Brothers in the mid-20th century. Tunney's believed that these encounters might have been real, but not in the way we initially thought. The alien facade might have been nothing more than a clever disguise. Messages of peace and universal brotherhood could be crypto-terrestrials' earnest attempts to rein in our destructive tendencies. One of the most famous cases in the UFO lore, Roswell, is also believed to be connected to crypto-terrestrials. Walter Bosley, a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer, believes his father received classified information about the infamous Roswell UFO crash at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio, further fueling this mesmerizing subterranean theory. Ancient beings, their secret underworlds, and the government's potential awareness of these factors make for an intriguing web of mystery, teasing the minds of those with a thirst for the unknown. According to Bosley, his dad was privy to the shocking conclusion that the supposed alien crash in Roswell wasn't alien at all. Instead, it involved beings and their aircraft from deep within our Earth. It suggested that their civilization resides in extensive subterranean caverns and tunnels beneath the southwestern portion of the United States. What a mind-bending idea. Bosley's father also shared that these beings look so human-like that they could mingle with us unnoticed. But up close, there's something different about them, still remaining a mystery for those who've not had a close encounter. So, as you gasp at the vast cosmos above, contemplating a potential close encounter with a UFO or alien, don't forget to consider that these ethereal experiences may originate closer to home. Could the true enigma lurk not thousands of light years away, but right beneath your feet? September 1991. I was about 16 years old and resided in upstate New York near the Adirondack Mountains. My dad had always been sort of a UFO enthusiast, harboring a fondness for shows about aliens and constantly keeping science journals around the house. I naturally adopted his interest, tossing around theories of extraterrestrials, ghostly phenomena, and other strange happenings, though for most of my life, I sat comfortably skeptical in my notions. It wasn't until one memorable incident that I started to consider the reality of extraterrestrial life. We lived in a residential suburb, our home tucked in a sea of other standard houses on the outer edge of the quiet little town known as Lake Placid. Nestled adjacent to our home began the endless expanse of the Adirondack forest. As routine, whenever our group of friends found a chance to evade the clutches of parental control, we would turn to the forest, our self-made sanctuary. We had managed to swipe a few odds and ends like discarded patio chairs and a broken fridge door for an impromptu table from around the neighborhood and had created our den. About a week before the incident, I stumbled upon an old foldable card table in the basement, gathering dust. I hoisted it to the fort along with some stale cookies and hot dogs, ready for a campout. As a sultry weekend crept its way in, Dave, Jimmy, and myself decided to embark on one of these summertime escapades. It was a regular Saturday night starting with card games and ghost stories. The night was unusually quiet. The usual chirping of crickets was absent, and the forest was engulfed in a deafening silence. It felt eerie, but we all shrugged and went along. Around 1 a.m., as we were engrossed into a game of Go Fish, an unbearably loud buzzing noise started to echo around us, followed by a blinding light that engulfed us from above. The brightness was so intense that we had to shield our eyes, and yet the light illuminated everything. Suffice to say, we were terrified, frozen in fear, our brains scrambling to make sense of what was happening. Before we could gather our bearings, the light was abruptly cut off, plunging us back into familiar darkness. Once our eyes adjusted to the sudden change, we frantically scanned the night sky above us, only to see absolutely nothing. Confusion reigned amidst us. Just moments before, we seemed to be under a spotlight of alien proportions, and now nothing. It wasn't anything like a spotlight or a flashlight. It was as though the sky itself had turned into a giant bulb, subtly shifting towards a scientific explanation. Jimmy, an ardent follower of Cosmos, wondered aloud if we just experienced the northern lights, a thought rejected by Dave, who quickly pointed out that even if the lights reached this far downstate, they wouldn't just switch off in an instant. We spent countless hours following the encounter, talking about it, disputing between more mundane explanations like military exercises or lightning, and pure science fiction like UFOs or skyquakes. It wasn't until we found the giant, circular, burned, grassless patch of land right at the center of our makeshift night camp the next morning. The grass around it was flattened as if a large mass had landed and then taken off again. It was a sight that left us awestruck, overwhelmed with a sense of disbelief. Maybe it was aliens, or a secret military project, or maybe something else that science or our limited knowledge could fathom. Post that event, our lives were forever changed. Every unexplained incident, every flash in the sky, anything remotely odd, we'd associate it with that encounter. Meanwhile, the forest slowly reclaimed our once beloved refuge. As scary as it was, we grew to appreciate this seemingly impossible phenomenon we witnessed. The UFO sighting, as we grew to call it, was a wake-up call of sorts, a slap in the face that stretched the boundaries of our understanding of the cosmos. It was certainly life-altering, and whether it was a natural phenomenon, a secret military experiment, or even an extraterrestrial contact is something we'll likely never know. But one thing's for sure, it was real as our memories of it, and so will always constitute a significant piece of our extraordinary juvenile run-ins with the unexplainable. So we hold on to it, proof or no proof. To some, our story might be nothing more than an elaborate hoax or teenagers letting their imagination run wild. But to us, it remains the mystery that opened a window to the unknown, a window that we're not quite ready to close just yet,